buy a certain item, right? You went to the store, you saw that certain item, and then you went and you bought it, but then when you went to the cash register, the person charged you, for example, $10. Now, normally the item would be like maybe $5, but then they charge you $10 because they know that you probably don't know that the price is like $5, and then they'll charge you $10 so they can make a profit out of you, and then you wouldn't know because you don't have the knowledge of those certain items. Usually that's what happens like when you go to foreign countries and stuff. People will charge you higher than the price of the original item because they know that you're not used to the area, you don't have the knowledge of that certain thing. But besides that, in relation to Islam, it's important for Muslims to have knowledge because when we have knowledge of our deen, then we can worship Allah.Ta'ala in the best way possible to the highest degree, and we can also make sure that we are practicing Islam the way that it is supposed to be practiced. We are following the commandments of Allah.Ta'ala the way that we are supposed to be doing. Because without the proper knowledge of the things that we are supposed to be doing, then there's a lot of mistakes and there are a lot of wrong things that we might end up doing. For example, you might end up going to a store and then you'll buy a certain food and then you'll eat that, and then that thing might be haram, but you don't know it's haram because you didn't end up learning that certain thing, or you didn't research that. You didn't think that maybe, oh, this type of food is haram, this type of food is not haram, and then that's going to affect you, because when you eat something that's haram, then your dua and your salah is not accepted for 40 days. But then you didn't know, so then it's going to end up affecting you, and then you didn't even realize. That's one of the consequences that comes with not having knowledge. Without having knowledge, there's a lot of things that you're going to fall into without knowing, because there are many things that knowledge takes us away from when you go and learn outside. And then at the same time, when you're learning knowledge, you should also check what kind of knowledge you're learning. You shouldn't just go outside and then you learn anything and then you come inside and be like, okay, I know this, I know that. You should try to look at what you're learning, and then, for example, if you see something where it says like you look into like the way of performing Salaah, then you look into like maybe the Quran, or you look into the Sunnah, and then you would try to see what's the right way of performing Salaah. It's all going to be explained, and then you would see, okay, this is the proper way of performing Salaah. Or if not that, you could try to ask a scholar or somebody of knowledge that you know has the correct knowledge. Because there are a lot of people who are scholars, yes, but then sometimes even the knowledge that they have is not correct. Sometimes the knowledge they have, they got it off maybe a wrong source, or sometimes they get their knowledge off something that's incorrect, and then you sit down and you just be like, oh yeah, they're scholars, they're sheikhs, they're muftis, so what they say is probably correct. And that's why a lot of people are usually misled, because they follow people without knowing that they themselves are giving out knowledge that's wrong. So when you seek knowledge, first what you should do is either you try to find a way where you can gain knowledge yourself. Like nowadays there's a lot of ways to gain knowledge. You can read books, for example, you can go online, you can try to get it from somebody else. But then when you gain a certain piece of knowledge, you should also try to check that piece of knowledge before you go outside and apply it to yourself, or before you go and spread that knowledge to other people. You first check to see, is this in the Quran or in the Sunnah? Was it said by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Was it said by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that this is how you're supposed to do this, or this is the correct way you do this? And then if you can't find it yourself, what you should do is you should try to ask maybe multiple scholars. You don't just ask one. I mean, I'm not saying that that person would be wrong in general, but just to make sure that it's correct, you would ask a bunch of scholars. You would ask a certain question, like say, is this food halal or haram? You go to one scholar, maybe they will tell you it's halal. You'd go to another scholar, maybe they will tell you it's haram, and then so on and so forth. So then when you go through that, then afterwards, like I said, check the Quran, check the Sunnah, check the Hadith, and then try to make the best judgment you can from that. Now, sometimes that doesn't mean you go off like your own knowledge, because a lot of people sometimes they think that they go and take any piece of knowledge and then from their own judgment they make certain judgments, and then they say that, oh yeah, this is correct, this is not correct. That's also sometimes wrong, because scholars, most of the time, what they do is they go through their knowledge, and then in school, they also have the explanations of the knowledge as well. Sometimes you can't find those things online or from other people. So they learned everything about it, they learned it in depth. So when you ask them as well, they can give you a good explanation of, oh yeah, this is how you're supposed to do this, and this is why this was implemented. Like for example, when you read a certain hadith, in the hadith you're going to see maybe the top part of it, it's going to tell you, do this or don't do this, but then why, or the explanation of the whole thing, you're not going to understand that part. You're just going to go off what you read. And then you're not going to understand it, and then after that, you're just going to go and do anything. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of Muslims today, they end up doing something wrong, or they might go somewhere and then they'll be like, oh, I heard it was actually this instead of this, because you got the wrong knowledge from the wrong person. And then, on top of checking those, you should also check the sources that the people get. After checking Quran, Sunnah, after checking the sheikhs, you should also check the sources they get it from as well. Which hadith book did they get it from? Which Sahaba was the one who said that certain thing? Or which, book, which sheikh was the one who gave us a certain piece of knowledge? And then by doing that, you can ensure that you yourself will be like, okay, this is correct, this is not correct, and I know this is good, this is not good, this maybe hadith is da'if, it's kind of weak, this hadith is a little strong, it's sahih. And then by doing that, you can ensure that you will not be misled, or you will not be misjudged by any knowledge that you learn. Because nowadays, it is very important for people to gain as much knowledge as they can, so that when you go outside, you know what to do yourself. Nobody can come to you and mislead you and say, come do this or come do that, this is correct, this is not correct, or what you're doing is wrong. You have to be firm yourself to say that, I learned this and I know my sources, and I know that this is the correct way of doing it because I researched it myself. I learned it from a certain sheikh who learned it from this sheikh who learned it from this book, and this is correct, and I'm 100% sure on my deen, because if you're not firm on your own deen, then people are going to come and sway you, and people are going to come and shake you, and then you're going to start having doubts to yourself. For example, if you were to go outside today, and then you were being debated by a non-Muslim, then if they realize that you don't have as much knowledge in your deen as higher level people, then they're going to start bringing up random things to try to shake you, and then you're going to sit down and you're going to be questioning it, you're not going to be able to answer them back. And then they're going to sit down and be like, oh, look at you, you don't even know half of your own thing. Sometimes the non-Muslims know more about the Quran and the Sunnah than even we do. So it is important that we should try our best to also, gain as much knowledge as we can so that we can go outside. But basically, you should have enough knowledge to be able to go outside and say that, I'm sure that if I go outside, I'm not going to be shaken by anybody. I'm sure that if I go outside, I'm going to be able to be steadfast, and no one's going to be able to come and be like, oh yeah, this is correct, this is not correct, this is correct, and then you're going to be like, oh, I'm not sure about this, I'm not sure about that. Because you did your research, you have your knowledge, and then you have everything that's set. You don't go outside and be like, oh, if someone tells you that Dhuhr Salah is 3 rak'ah instead of 4 rak'ah, then you're going to know that obviously Dhuhr Salah is 4 rak'ah. Why? Because you researched your knowledge, you got it from the people, you saw it in the Sunnah, you saw it in the Hadith, that Dhuhr Salah is 4 rak'ah, is not 3 or 2 or 1. So in this way, we can ensure that, we have the right amount of knowledge. We're not going to go outside and then afterwards we're going to make these mistakes. And then we're not also going to go outside and give this knowledge to other people that could be wrong. Because if you give the wrong knowledge to somebody and then they end up doing something that may be haram or something like that because you gave them the wrong knowledge. And then sometimes, people bring up the excuse saying that, oh yeah, I didn't know this, or I didn't know that, I didn't know this was incorrect. But then there are some instances where that may be okay, but then there are some instances where that may not be okay, because in this day and age, there's a lot of ways to gain knowledge. Like I said before, you can read a book, you can get it from a person who's very knowledgeable, you can go online, you have your phones, iPads, computers, tablets, and everything. You can go online and research it yourself, but then if you go outside and say that, oh yeah, I didn't know this was haram, or I didn't know that this was sinful, sometimes that's not an excuse, because you had the means to be able to research it, but then you chose not to. If you have the means to gain knowledge, but then you choose not to, then you're going to be held accountable for the mistakes that you did, because you could have realized what you did if you had gone and gained that knowledge, but then you didn't. So that's why sometimes some people say like it's okay for like me to have like a certain amount of knowledge, or it's okay for me to like know the small amounts that I have, but in reality we should try to gain as much knowledge as we can before, the time comes where we'll not be able to gain any more knowledge. So then when you go out, like I said before, you know you're right, and you can do judgment on yourself on the things that are halal and haram. There's a hadith to the closest meaning where Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu went to the marketplace in Medina, and then he was passing by, and then he was telling the people, basically like, oh you people, why are you here in the marketplace, and the inheritance of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is being distributed. So then they asked him, like, oh, where is it being distributed? So then he told them that it was being distributed in the masjid. So they all rushed to the masjid. But then afterwards they came out, and then they told Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu that they didn't see anything being distributed. They're like, you said that the inheritance of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was being distributed, but we didn't see anything. So then he asked them, like, what was going on in the masjid, and then they said that in the masjid there were some people praying, and there were some people who were reading Quran, and there were some people who were, discussing the matters of halal and haram. So then afterwards, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said to them, woe unto you, that this is the inheritance of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the inheritance from the prophets isn't, gold or silver, money, land, all that stuff. The inheritance from the prophets to the people down is knowledge. So as the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in a time like this, where there are a lot of trials and tribulations going outside, where there's a lot of false knowledge going outside, you should try your best to gain as much as knowledge as you can, and you should try your best to not just gain any knowledge, try to gain the right amount of knowledge, the correct one, We shouldn't just take any piece of knowledge and go with it. We should check it and see, is this the correct thing to do, or is this not the correct thing to do? Sometimes you can see from yourself, like logically, this is not correct, this is correct, or sometimes you look into the sources, and then you see for yourself that it says here, this and this and this. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. My dear brothers and sisters, in this current time and age, there are a lot of things going on outside in the world. There's a lot of confusion going on. There are a lot of things that are happening that could easily turn a person away from Islam, could easily cause a person to fall off the deen. So with the proper knowledge, you're going to be able to go outside and combat these kind of things. You're going to be able to go outside, and then you can say, for example, quote things from the Quran or quote things from the Hadith with the correct sources. And then it's not just for us, or it's not just benefiting us, it's also benefiting the people that we're spreading the knowledge to. When you gain knowledge, you should try to spread that knowledge to other people, but like I said, make sure that that knowledge is correct. And then when you try to spread knowledge to other people, you make sure that they're also benefiting from that knowledge. Once I heard from one of my teachers that, when you learn a certain piece of information, that thing, a lot of people say that, I have knowledge, but you can't really call it knowledge. When you learn something, it's called information. But then, when you take that piece of information and you apply it, then that's what's called knowledge. Because when you have a certain piece of information and you don't do anything with it, then it's not helping anybody, or it's not helping you yourself. then you should take that piece of information and then you apply it to yourself in your life, and then you also spread that piece of information to other people so that they can apply it in their lives. One of the biggest things that we should be doing as Muslims, as our responsibility, is not just gaining knowledge for ourselves, but spreading knowledge to other Muslims as well. Because there are a lot of Muslims today that are lost, or a lot of Muslims today that are confused. They don't have the right proper knowledge, they don't know what they're doing, and then they're going to end up giving that knowledge to other people are going to look at them and then take examples off of them, and then the Ummah is just going to go into turmoil. So us, by gaining the right pieces of knowledge, we're going to go and we're going to educate the rest of the Ummah, and we're going to educate them into doing what's right and not doing what's wrong, showing them what's halal, showing them what's haram, showing them that this is what you're supposed to be doing, this is what you're not supposed to be doing. And then after that, that knowledge could, inshallah, spread to other people, and then slowly but surely, the ummah will be strengthened. Because a lot of times you see a lot of people who are outside, and then, sometimes people take examples off of people on social media, for example, but then even then people on social media, they're saying stuff that's not correct, or they're saying stuff that's wrong. Sometimes, not all the things they're saying is wrong. There are some things that they say that's correct, but then they'll say one piece of information, and then that thing is wrong. So then that's when you should be like, you can't blindly follow a person. You can take the things that are correct from them, but then the things that are wrong, you should be able to distinguish and be like, okay, this is not correct because so and so and so. People are going to ask you if you go outside. If you tell someone that, you're not praying correctly, or you tell someone that you're not doing this correctly, they're going to ask you why. So then you explain to them, be like, because this and this. But then they're going to ask you, like, where'd you get your sources from? Or which sheikh did you get that from? So then if you don't know, then obviously they're going to look at you and be like, okay, you don't know your stuff either, so you can't be teaching me. So that's why nowadays, especially in this time, knowledge is very important. Because without knowledge, it's going to be very hard for people to get through life, especially for children. You go outside, and then, a lot of things that are going on outside, the schools that they're going to, the things that they're going to end up learning. Without the proper knowledge, they're not going to know what's right and what's wrong. They're not going to know that, I shouldn't do this and I shouldn't do that. They're going to follow whatever environment they're in. So then our job is to make sure that they have the correct knowledge, so then when they go outside, they can also see that, I know I'm not supposed to be doing this, or I know I'm not supposed to be doing that. I know that this is what I'm supposed to follow, this is what I'm not supposed to follow. Because they have that knowledge that you pass down onto them, but then, like I said, make sure that that knowledge is solid, that knowledge is correct. That's the most important thing. If that knowledge is not correct, then you're going to ruin yourself, you're going to ruin other people, and then they're going to ruin other people, and instead of getting the benefits of, sadaqah jariyah, you're going to end up getting, you could end up getting sins for that, because they're going to end up going down wrong and wrong and wrong, and then after that, it's going to be like an unfixable situation. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the tawfiq to be able to gain knowledge, the right knowledge, and to be able to go outside and distinguish from ourselves what is right and what is wrong. Inshallah. Allahumma ahdina fi man hadayt, wa afina fi man afayt, wa tawallana fi man tawallayt, wa barik lana fi ma a'tayt, wa qina wasrif anna sharra ma qadayt, fa innaka taqdi bil haqqi wa la yuqda alayk, innahu la yadhillu man wa'alayt, wa la yu'izzu man 'adayt, tabarakta rabbana wa ta'alayt. لك الحمد على ما قضيت ولك الشكر على ما أعطيت نستغفرك اللهم من جميع الذنوب والخطايا وأتوب إليك اللهم اقسم لنا من خشيتك كما تحول به بيننا وبين معصيتك ومن طاعتك ما تبلغنا به جنتك ومن اليقين ما تحول به علينا مصائب الدنيا ومتعنا اللهم بأسماعنا وأبصارنا وقواتنا أبدا ما أبقيتنا واجعله الوارث منا واجعل ثأرنا على من ظلمنا وانصرنا على من آذانا ولا تجعل مصيبتنا في ديننا ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا ولا إلى النار مصيرنا واجعل الجنة هي دارنا وقرارنا ولا تسلط علينا بذنوبنا من لا يخافك فينا ولا يرحمنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. قم الصلاة.
عبد الله بشارة
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Before we perform the salah, we have a brother here. What's your name?
Sean.
Brother Sean, who would like to take his shahada. Inshallah. So first, when we're taking the shahada, we're supposed to repeat after we repeat the second kalima, the kalima shahada, where you say, basically, you bear witness that there is no God besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you also bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad is, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, is the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, you ready? Okay, so you just repeat after me, okay? Ashhadu Allah ilaha illa Allah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Okay, and then now we're going to do it in English. Okay, so I bear witness that there is no God besides Allah, and I bear witness that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the messenger and servant of Allah. Okay, let's say takbir, takbir, takbir. So now, by saying these words, you've entered the fold of Islam. So then, when you enter the fold of Islam, it's like you're like a newborn child. All the sins and all the wrongdoings that you have done before, those are like wiped away. So now you're starting in a clean slate. Okay, thank you very much. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله اللهم صل على محمد قد قام صلاة القيام صلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. هل أتاك حديث الغاشية وجوه يومئذ خاشعة عاملة ناصبة تصلى نارا حامية تسقى من عين آنية ليس لهم طعام إلا من ضريع لا يسمن ولا يغني من جوع وجوه يومئذ ناعمة لسعيها راضية في جنة عالية لا تسمع فيها لاغية فيها عين جارية فيها سرر مرفوعة وأكواب موضوعة ونمارق مسفوفة وزرابي مبثوثة أفلا ينظرون إلى الإبل كيف خلقت وإلى السماء كيف رفعت وإلى الجبال كيف نصبت وإلى الأرض كيف سطحت فذكر إنما أنت مذكر لست عليهم بمسيطر إلا من تولى وكفر فيعذبه الله العذاب الأكبر إن إلينا إيابهم ثم إن علينا حسابهم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, this Sunday we're having the baking contest that starts at 4 o'clock and it goes all the way to Salat Maghrib, inshallah. So the rules and regulations are on the hallway on the board, so you can look at the rules and regulations for that. We are looking for original baked food. No buying of baked food and bring it to the masjid. You and your family bake and bring it to the masjid and let's enjoy it together. And we'll judge who is the best baker amongst us, inshallah, and we'll reward you accordingly, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair to Imam Abdullah Drami for today's khutbah. May Allah continue to increase in knowledge and gain an understanding, inshallah. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful Jummah. And I would say, on a note, still, if you need any janaza assistance and you need information about janaza, please see our brother Talib Abdul Haq. We still need some funding for janaza because we help everybody out, inshallah. Mr. Talib, Jazakallah khairan.